Well, we've been waiting on this opportunity and excited today it is finally happening. We get an opportunity to talk to Candace Owens. Candace, welcome to the Rick and Bubba show for the debut. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I know it's been on your bucket list as well. Well, we are excited to have you here. Candace is going to be speaking. The show is in a lot of places, but we are based out of Birmingham, Alabama, about an hour north of Montgomery, the capital of Alabama. And Candace will be speaking at Faulkner University, the benefit dinner, great university, on October the 6th. Coming up this fall, and those tickets are available now. We've got that in show notes at faulkner.edu, and, of course, these proceeds go directly to student scholarships. So Candace is also the author of Blackout, the New York Times best-selling book, and, of course, founder of Blexit Organization. So, Candace, we want to start. Did you know that you and Bubba actually are connected in a strange way?
I did not know that. What is it? Do we have the same birthday? Have we named our child the same thing? What is it? Tell me.
Well, we have several common friends, but David Nasser is a big fan or a big friend of Rick and mine both, and understand he actually performed your wedding ceremony.
He did. I did not know that. He did. He married me and my husband in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he also, ironically, he's now just moved to Nashville, and we moved to Nashville just before him. So we'll be able to see him much more often now.
Well, next time you see him, ask him about the time that he was almost arrested with Bubba from the Rick and Bubba show at the U.S. Open.
That happened.
Were you guys trying to scalp some tickets?
Well, one of us was, and it wasn't me. We were actually looking for tickets, but not necessarily familiar with the local laws on that outside.
Right,
But there was one point that David was running against the grain of the people going in, screaming, "Run, run!" And I was like, "Why do I need to run? I'm not the one trying to buy tickets."
That's funny. Yeah.
These are wicked untruths that you're telling about my good pastor.
Yeah. So you bring up Rick and Bubba to Nasser, and I promise you're
going to get a lot of stories.
You're going to get a lot of stories. So small world. Hey, so let's talk a little bit. When the things that you have tried so hard to communicate, and of course we're living in a time now where the freedom of expression is under attack, and we only believe it should be allowed to certain points of view, and you have been the target so many times.
Wow, the target.
Yeah. So, people now, you go out there and go, well, look, if I say this, and this, I got to be careful when I do this and how this, and let's do that. So tell me about, the difficulty. I know, like my wife and I, we have been very outspoken on some things, and we've come under attack before. And I know that as in a marriage, there's been many times that I've come in and said, look, you read the comments, didn't you? We almost have a rule. Look, if we have something and people are after us, just don't read the comments because people can be so wicked. Tell me what has been this dynamic. You talk about you and your husband. I know from him, being a protector of his wife, not in a Will Smith way, but in a very traditional way. How difficult has this been to receive such backlash in your life?
It hasn't been that difficult, and people are always amazed when I say that. And I think one of the number one questions that I always get is, where do you get your courage from to deal with this? And I always say that a better question is to ask where I get my happiness from. I don't get my sense of self from the internet. I don't get, ideas about who I am or what I represent in this world from headlines and, clicks and likes. And I think one thing that really benefited me is that I kind of found this exposure and publicity and fame at a later age in life and not when I was younger. So I was just a more well-formed person. And I was very certain, and I remain just very certain of who I am every single day. And that certainty is so strengthened once you find the right partner. And it just really goes back to, and Faulkner University is a Christian university, but, it just goes back to the Bible, the basic things, family, faith, and freedom. And so for me, having a family that's so intact and knowing that I get my happiness from at home and that every single day that's where my source of happiness is going to come from, it becomes unshakable. It's not for the world, right? So I think that's been the biggest contributor. As I say to people, I'm genuinely happy. And, of course, it helps that my happiness genuinely upsets the people who hate me so much, right? They can't figure it out. We've called you so many names. We've said terrible things. We've written headlines about you that aren't true. Why are you still smiling? And it's because it was never available for them to take.
Candace, you're such a strong, outspoken speaker for conservative values, what I would consider the American way, but you haven't always been that way. Tell us a little bit about your transition into conservative values and what brought that about and what brought on that change.
Yeah, I wrote about this at length in my book, Blackout, because I wanted people to know who I was and where I came from, because it's sort of, for a lot of people, felt like I came from out of nowhere. And really the answer is my grandfather. Unfortunately, even though I wasn't politically Republican or conservative, I was raised very conservatively by my grandfather. And he just was a kind of no-nonsense, man from the South, born and raised in North Carolina during the time of segregation, always worked because he had to, obviously, and, was working since he was 5 years old. And, more of what I learned was caught and not taught. I just saw him and my grandmother in a very functional relationship, how happy they were their entire lives. My grandfather never complained about anything. He just thought that the ability to be able to work and to contribute was the ultimate blessing in life. And he placed nothing above his family. And growing up in his household, and we had to read the Bible, every morning around the breakfast table, I was so resentful of that conservative nature. And when I got out of his house, I went the exact opposite way, right? So I was super liberal. I wasn't politically liberal. I never had voted before. I will always be remembered as a Republican voter, unless the Republicans do something crazy. But I was spiritually liberal. I kind of believed in all the nonsense that liberalism represented freedom, and that all I had to do was let go and go with the world. And ultimately, very quickly, it made me miserable. I had nothing of substance in my life. When you're chasing these things that don't actually provide you with any value, it shrinks you as a person on the inside. When my grandmother died, and it's a much longer story, when my grandmother died, I kind of had that wake-up call that I hadn't really been happy since I had been in their household. And I did a complete 180 and kind of went back to my roots, really. So I very largely contribute who I am today to all of those early seeds that were planted by my grandmother and my grandfather.
Yeah, and that's the part, and you've talked about this. You've made this point. I don't understand why more people haven't come to the same conclusion. And you talked about this a lot in Blackout, and you talk about it with your organization on how if you're black, you have to be a Democrat. But then when you look at how Democrats have treated black people throughout time, now they have conveniently washed their history away, but no one else can. If you really go by their rules, that whatever you've ever done in the past is still who you are today, I don't know why they're still claimed as the party of the black people. It doesn't make any sense to me. And you've talked about this before, but I'm white, so I can only see it, they say, from a certain angle. But I am logical. I can see if something hasn't worked for you, why do you continue to cling to it? I think it's Einstein's definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yeah, and doesn't it feel disrespectful for any organization to say you belong to us, no matter what?
Yeah, that's right. And I think what people have to realize is that what you're dealing with is a mass brainwashing more than anything else. And that you can see that looking at how COVID has happened, right? You've got people double masking in their cars by themselves, even when they don't have to. Right. And so it's the ability of the mainstream media plus the public education system to form people's minds is very real and very relevant. We don't talk enough about the effects of propaganda. We don't talk enough about the impact of a Department of Education that has been intent upon teaching children, first and foremost, that they can undermine their parents, right? That family structures are not something that they need. That's where I learned it. You be freer in the world. This will produce more freedom. Take off your clothes on the internet. You'll feel better for this. Sleep with tons of men. I mean, these are really the things that kids are learning, not at home, but in the classroom, right? So you've got 18 years. I mean, if your kid goes to the public school system, you've got 18 years of brainwashing that has to be undone.